Um, I want to start with a story. There's an old story about a rabbi who lived in a big city in Europe. And he had a visitor who came from far away, came by boat from New York City. And this visitor came to the rabbi's house, which was a beautiful home in a beautiful city. And he was shown to the attic of this house where the rabbi lived. He came to the rabbi's room and realized that there was only a bed, a chair, a few books, and that's it. And he said, after they exchanged greetings, he said, Rabbi, I was expecting more. Where are your things? And the rabbi said, where are your things? And the visitor said, well, I'm just passing through. And the rabbi responded, so am I. So am I. So the season is a season where we really come into our awareness of mortality. In fact, today is Shabbat Shuvah, which always falls between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And we are in this season of preparing for Yom Kippur when we come wearing white, um, pretending, right? Rabbi Alan Liu, in his book, This is Real and You're Completely Unprepared, he describes the day of Yom Kippur as a grand rehearsal for our death. So we show up to Yom Kippur and we let go of our eating, our drinking. We're wearing white. We say the vidui, the confessional that we might say at the end of our lives. We confess what we have done wrong, and we really review our lives. And in fact, this Shabbat, we also read the Haftorah that we read is Micah, is from Micah. And in this Haftorah, we also see a little text that reminds us of the Tashlich ceremony that we do when we go to a flowing body of water and we throw away our sins. And I'll just read this little text. It says, Yashuv Yarahamenu, God will take us back in compassion, with compassion, quashing our iniquities. You will hurl all our sins into the depths of the sea. So this is the season where we are aware of our lives, we know what's important, and we are asked to hurl away that which no longer serves us, that which we have held on to beyond its expiration date, the grudges, the fears, the clingings, the ways in which we wish things were different, the desperation, the despair. We begin anew. So the meditation that I'm playing with in this season is one in which we let go, right? In the same way that we let go of morsels of bread that we throw into a flowing body of water, how do we let go of what arises to, what comes to the surface, what percolates to the surface when we come into a place of meditation, of quiet? What is it that we can let go of in order to quiet our mind, in order to soften the heart, in order to really prepare for this experience of coming to the day of Yom Kippur with as little stuff, with as little unnecessary stuff that no longer serves us, knowing that we're just passing through. So I invite you to meditate together and bring your feet to the ground beneath you. And I'll give a few instructions for this practice, and then we'll sit in silence. I think it's really helpful to feel the supportive structure of the seat beneath you, to know that in this moment you are safe, you're being held and supported. Your feet on the ground, perhaps your hands on your thighs, but a posture of comfort and truth. I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable, to locate the breath in the body, to notice where it flows freely, where it needs a little more softness, gentleness, softening the belly, opening the shoulders in a posture of dignity. Remember that letting go in this practice doesn't mean letting go of knowledge. That is yours. Whatever you know to be true is yours. We let go of all of the noise. We let go of fear, anxiety, a sense of clinging. And in order to let go, we first allow it to be. We notice what arises. We notice what comes up. We allow it to be just as it is. Because if we resist, it will persist. And then with a kind approach, we can ask ourselves, is this story still relevant? Do I need to keep telling this story over and over? Can I let go? Almost like a full cup that needs to just be emptied a little, creating space for something new. Breathing in and letting go of breath is so natural, so organic. And so is letting go of whatever comes up. Noticing, allowing, and letting go. We'll sit in silence for the next 10 minutes or so. Just continuing this practice of noticing, allowing, and letting go. Just notice where you are now. Whatever floats to the surface, allow it to be. Let go and return back to your center, your breath, your anchor. When you are feeling ready, I invite you to come back into our shared space, and just before you connect with this online community, notice the quality of light in your room. Notice the quality of your own experience. Notice if there's been a shift in your own presence from the moment that you logged on to now. And just take a moment to really savor and harvest whatever emerged from this communal sit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marita. Sorry for that delay there. I want to thank you for guiding us again so skillfully in our practice today. And let's seal it as we do each day, offering an opportunity for anyone who's in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. I want to thank Nana Lee for sharing the words of the mourner's Kaddish on the screen. You can put the name or names of those you're honoring in the chat now or after you recite Kaddish. And just again, a reminder that there's an additional word in the Kaddish in the third paragraph. There's a repetition of La'ela, which means higher and higher, as we in recognition of the special holiness and sanctity of these 10 days of turning that we're in right now. So if you're joining me from the Kaddish, please join me by rising in body and spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitkadal,
Shemei Rabba, Yama Dibrak Yurte, Yam Chafute, Fon, Yamkon, Israel, Agalagas Mankari, Shmei Rabba Marach,
Shmei Rabba Marach, Friends, thanks so much for joining us. And if you're leaving us now, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom for Shabbat Shuvah, the Shabbat, as Marita mentioned, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We hope you'll be back with us next week. I'm going to put in the chat our schedule for next week. Of course, we will not be meeting live next Thursday, which is Yom Kippur, but we will be meeting every other day, Monday through Wednesday, and on Friday as well. Just want to make note that on Wednesday, our sit is co-sponsored, as has become a tradition, with the Shomer Collective, and that is in keeping with the theme that Marita introduced today of Yom Kippur as a day of really coming face to face with our own mortality and what that means in terms of the process of transformation. Maybe we'll explore that a little bit in our conversation in a moment. So if you're leaving us now, wish you Shabbat Shalom. We hope to see you next week. And of course, We hope you are able to stay on for conversation and just to share your reflections on your experience with our practice today. And you can do that in the chat. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please write question all in caps, and I'll keep an eye out and try to include that. Can't recognize raised hands, only questions in the chat. So if you like to contribute, please put that in the chat. I'll keep an eye out for that. And Marita, thank you so much as always, guiding us really so beautifully. Really, number one, first of all, just appreciate you grounding the practice in this theme of, I guess, impermanence, temporality, of letting go. I was thinking what came up for me in terms of the liturgy was thinking about Unatana Toka, the prayer that is challenging for so many people who will live, who will die. But the other part of that prayer, which speaks of us as clay vessels that break, as a cloud that passes, as a leaf that withers, as the grass, that whatever grass does withers also, I guess. But basically about, the punchline of your story that we're just passing through, which is a reality that we often not to think about. We're grasping and clasping at things to try to create the illusion of permanence and settledness. And the other part that I thought of was from the passage, I think it's Parshat Bahar in Leviticus, which is the portion about the Jubilee year, where it's always very striking to me where God giving the laws of the Jubilee year and the sabbatical year to Moses says, you atem toshavim gerim v'toshavim imadi. You're just, basically what you said, God says, you're just passing through my world here. Your temporary residents and strangers with me, though. It's the with me, not and there's something about the combination of the temporality, but also the connection to something eternal, that you are with me in this. So I want to invite you to talk about that a little bit. Like so much of what we describe as mindfulness practice is, as you described really beautifully. I think you said, notice, allow, and then the third part, I think you said release, maybe?
I think notice, allow, and let go.
Let go, right.
Yeah.
Catch and release.
Catch
so I want to talk about that, but there's a paradoxical nature that I think I want to try to lift up here, which is that it's only in doing that we're actually able to connect to something that is permanent, lasting, right? By giving up that which is not lasting, we get to, according to that passage, experience a sense of connection to the divine, which is infinite and lies beyond us. And that's what I think maybe changes. This is what a question. All this is leading into a question about the spiritual nature of Jewish mindfulness practice, because it feels to me as though that's part of what gives it the spiritual dimension. That it's great, it calms us down, it allows us not to get too constricted around the small things. It allows us to sweat the small things less, and therefore it leaves us hopefully calmer and more responsive, et cetera, et cetera. That's all to the good, less stress, all good, but also there is that sense of connecting to something deeper and bigger than ourselves also. Does that land for you?
Oh, you verbalized that so beautifully. Yeah. The letting go practice has been a very alive practice for me in recent weeks. I take this season very, very seriously. And sometimes I feel like the letting go practice is really helpful I've like accumulated some grudges over the year. I've accumulated some arguments with people that I care about and some ways I wish things weren't the way they are. I also sent a kid off to college for his first year, and that's really new. And, like there's a real practice of letting go and then also like establishing these new patterns of like, will he call? Is he, is the fact that he's not calling, what does that mean? I don't want to make this about him, but it's more like just the day-to-day friction that happens and the ways in which, if we're able to come to a place of stillness and quiet, and let go of some of that noise, that what really emerges is a sense of love and care and like the most important stuff, right? So like it's much easier. I feel like the word forgiveness to me is a really loaded word. I have a lot of um, resistance to that word because it feels I don't know, like even like the part of give, like I'm supposed to give something, and I'm like, well, I don't want to. I want to hold on to it. But I feel like this aspect of tashlich, this aspect of sort of releasing, like you said. I said let it go. You said releasing, and I actually think releasing is a great word. It allows for something else to emerge, something that's more stable, more grounded, less noisy, more attuned, right? Like that's like more in line with my values. Yeah.
Another thing you said that there's on the one, so we were engaging in this practice of noticing what arises, allowing it to be, not resisting it, and that you interjected somewhere in there. To resist is to allow it to persist, right? Like
perseverate. Yeah, like we tend to perseverate on stuff.
Right. So it's want to like keep going with what you were saying about forgiveness, right? And what this time is really about that letting go, the releasing, um, and in contrast to that, what we often do is like constrict around what comes up. So when we do this, I'm always very interested in what is the practice of the meditation that is reflective of a practice that we can replicate all the time in the course of our day, right? So we're sitting in traffic and we're going to be late and somebody is slow to turn and we don't make the light as a result, or, like the little things that can be irritating that I notice, where I can notice myself getting agitated and constricted, or somebody didn't clean something, or, put something away, or like, small things, or they didn't do what I expected them to do or behave in the way I expected them to behave. Or might be about myself. I didn't behave the way I wish I had behaved, etc. And I can start getting constricted around that. And this practice in meditation I guess I'd like to sort of slow the film down. And maybe if you're willing to share, like, what's going on for you as you're saying those words, to notice what arises. Like, for example, I'm noticing whatever, like for myself, I might say, like, I'm noticing what's arising is that it's really hard to stay present. I'm really, that my mind really wants to go think about something that I did, that happened earlier, or plan for dinner, or think about some, plan vacation in next summer, and think, oh, okay, notice that, allow that, planning is happening, or revisiting is happening, and then let that go and be open to the next moment is a microcosm of what to do in that situation where I'm getting aggravated, whether it's at myself or somebody else, where I might have the choice to soften around that, to let that go, to let not be as caught up in it, in the drama of it, or something I read or heard on the news or whatever that I can, can get very worked up about and tighten around. So can we going back to the meditation,
Mhm.
what happens for you? And while you're sitting, what comes up and how do
Yeah.
you notice
I mean,
that?
I'll tell you what comes up. I think I tried to describe it. What comes up right now in this season is like, my feelings are hurt.
Mhm,
Um, I tend to, you know, get stuck around, I didn't deserve that,
mhm,
or I wish it were different.
mhm,
That's what comes up for me. And
mhm,
I honestly, I use let go as a mantra, let it go.
mhm,
And I also use this aspect of like, I kind of feel into the wave-like nature of the breath, right? That like we're not necessarily actively breathing in and breathing out, it's just happening. And so I try to let go on the exhale because it just feels like so natural and organic for me, and then come back on the inhale to the breath. And if it arises again, it's okay. It's not a problem, right? Like I notice, I think it becomes, I don't know, I feel like if I connect it to my breath, it organically allows me to let go a little bit
mhm,
and soften around and do it, and really doing it with sort of gentleness and kindness, and without, like, we're not throwing things away, right? Like that
mhm,
feels really intense. I do imagine, actually, I found that in this season, it is really nice to imagine like pouring a little out of a cup,
mhm,
or throwing like a morsel of bread into the lake. Like I do use imagery to help myself
uh-huh,
with that aspect. And then eventually it just happens organically. Like eventually I'm able to just come to a place of quiet and stillness. It
mhm.
doesn't, um, it's a gentle practice for me.
Thank you
Um,
for sharing. Thanks for
yeah.
sharing that. I think that's extremely helpful. Most of it's making me think about the theme of forgiveness, which of course leads us into Yom Kippur, and the teaching that errors between ourselves and God, Yom Kippur atones for that. This is in the Mishnah about Yom Kippur, but sins between interpersonal sins require some. Um, Yom Kippur doesn't provide atonement for those until we make some peace with it. So that
Mhm.
a big part of the work that we're doing in these 10 days is, you know, whether the English word forgiveness works or not, is a kind of softening around hurts and grudges. I'm
Mhm.
wondering whether like the resistance to the word forgiveness, I'm making up in my mind that for some people, I don't know about for you, is that sometimes it kind of has an inference of absolution, right?
Mhm.
Let's pretend that didn't happen. Let's forgive and forget, right?
Mhm.
And I think forgiveness in our tradition doesn't necessarily mean exactly that. It doesn't mean forget. It's that this happened, right? This hurt, and to some extent, there's legitimacy to the hurt. And there's a question about how to continue to move forward with the knowledge of that in the past, that I think your practice as you're describing it can help us not be, someone in the chat was talking about freedom. The release is like an
Mhm.
action of freedom, that we're freeing ourselves from the hurts of the past of the way, right? That
Mhm.
there's a healing quality to that.
Mhm.
So I don't know, is that in terms of the
Yeah,
resistance to the word forgiveness,
absolutely.
is
And
that right?
like I feel like my personal practice is about like Sukkot Shalom, right? Like my personal practice is this little cocoon that I build for myself, of like returning home to the home base, right?
Mhm.
And I feel if I can feel safe in my own home base, then maybe I can feel safer out in the world.
Mm.
And when I come into the home base, it's always, it's like that Rumi poem. It's a guest house, there are all these guests coming in, the despair, the, anger, the frustration, the hopelessness, whatever.
Mhm.
And the question is like, can I manage and not so much manage, but like, can I be at peace with my home base so that when I come out into the world, I can be at peace in the world? And, we talked about the micro, but I kind of want to talk about the macro a little bit. I'm just I know we have like no time, but I just want to
Right.
share this
Go,
one
go for it.
tiny macro story.
Go for it.
So yesterday, my daughter had a cross country meet. And usually she places, top of these races. And yesterday she placed like 18th. And she was devastated, just absolutely devastated. And it took a really long time to just like even get her to acknowledge that like it's okay, it's not that big of a deal. And
Mhm.
then in the evening, we received a note from her coach, and her coach said, I have data from last year. And last year, you ran this race 3 minutes slower than you did this year. And so it doesn't really matter what place you came in, but what matters is that you improved your time by 3 minutes over the last year. And the macro of that, right? Like, meditation is not a competitive sport, right?
Right.
Like we're not competing to win. But I think we so often forget, like when we're doing Heshbon Hanefesh and we're always like, oh, I wish this was different. I wish I had done that better and blah, blah, blah. I also want us to kind of be aware of where were you last year? How did you show up today? What is the quality of your presence? What's the quality of your ability to listen? What's the quality of like your ability to be honest and like come from a place of your heart? How far have you come in those areas, right? And so I think sometimes we don't give enough credit to how much growth happens over long periods of time, even if like the daily incremental
Right.
ones don't feel as powerful.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm glad we made a little extra time
Yeah.
for you to make that point. I just think that's so important. So important. Thank you.
Thank you
And I
so
think
much. Thank you for the space to be here.
always a blessing. Chatima Tova, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And thanks to Natalie for holding our space, each of you for being here. Hope everyone has a sweet and restorative Shabbat Shuvah. And we hope to see you back here on Monday. What did I say? Rabbi Mira Nikolescu will lead us. Looking forward to